They told you to fit in, to smile, to please. But what if I told you your soul is tired, not because you're broken, but because you've been performing, chasing applause that fades, ignoring a peace that never left? This is your wake-up call. If you've ever felt like you're losing yourself just to keep the world comfortable, you're not alone. Approval is addictive, but peace is power. It's time to stop shrinking to be accepted. Time to stop letting noise drown out your truth. Because when you choose peace over performance, stillness over claps, truth over trends, everything changes, your energy changes, your people change. Your life changes. You stop living for the crowd and start living for your soul. And trust me, there's no better feeling than walking in your purpose, quiet and unshaken. Welcome to the space where your soul finally speaks. You know, there's something funny about approval. It feels good for a moment, but it owns you forever. It's like chasing a ghost. You reach for it, you grab it, you think you've finally made it, and then the next moment it slips through your fingers. You post something and the likes roll in, you say what they want to hear and they cheer. But deep down you're starving for something real, starving for something that doesn't need to be earned with applause. You ever notice how tired you get trying to impress people? You shift how you talk, how you dress, how you move, just to be accepted, just to feel like you belong, and the crazy thing is, the more you change for them, the more they demand from you. It's a treadmill, you run faster and it never stops, because approval is addictive. It rewires your mind, makes you feel like you're not enough until they say you are. But peace is different. Peace doesn't clap, peace doesn't shout your name, peace sits in silence, and it knows who you are even when nobody else does. Peace is what you feel when the crowd is gone and the lights are off and you still feel whole. That's not something you can fake. That's not something you can buy. That's something you build by choosing truth over popularity, purpose over applause. See, most people don't realize they've made approval their god. They worship it, they obey it, they let it decide who they are. They'll sacrifice their values just to feel accepted. But here's the truth. People will cheer for you one day and tear you down the next. If you build your identity on their praise, you'll collapse under their silence. You can't serve your soul and serve the crowd at the same time. One will have to go. There's a kind of freedom that comes when you stop needing to be seen. When you stop checking your reflection through their eyes. When you wake up and realize you don't need their claps to validate your breath. That's when the chains fall off. That's when you start living, not performing. Not pretending, living, and look, I get it. I get why it's tempting. Approval feels like love. It feels like acceptance, but it's not. It's a rented version of belonging. It only lasts as long as you keep paying the price. And the price is always your peace, always your authenticity. But peace, real peace, that's earned through honesty, through letting go of who they want you to be and standing tall in who you are. Let me tell you, peace might not get you the standing ovation, but it will get you rest. Rest from the hustle to be enough. Rest from the performance. Rest from the fear of what they'll say if you finally speak your truth. You'll start doing things not because they look good, but because they are good. Not because they're trending, but because they're right. That's peace. You stop second, guessing every move. You stop living your life like it's a show and start living it like it's a mission, because that's what this is. Your life ain't a popularity contest. It's a calling, and every time you choose peace over approval, you get closer to that calling. You stop needing the applause, and you start becoming the reason for it. Not because you sought it, but because you inspired it. So if you're tired of the performance, if you're done with the masks, the filters, the like me please energy, step back, step into silence, let peace introduce you to yourself. Let it clean out the noise and remind you what it feels like to just be, not be accepted, not be admired, just be, because once you feel that kind of peace, the deep, unshakable kind, you'll never trade it again. Not for applause, not for attention, not for anything. You'll finally understand that the real win in life isn't being popular. It's being whole, And when you're whole, you don't need their claps, because you already feel full. You ever been in a room full of people talking at the same time? Everybody trying to be heard, everybody trying to prove something. You hear so many voices that you forget what you were thinking about in the first place. That's life for a lot of people. That's what most folks are walking around in: noise, constant noise, opinions, expectations, comparisons, criticism. Everybody got something to say about your life, and if you're not careful, you start living for their voices instead of your own. And when that happens, you lose your soul in the volume. You can't hear your calling when you're tuned into chaos. You can't feel your purpose when every second you're worried about fitting in, keeping up, or pleasing folks who don't even know the real you. The more you listen to them, the more you silence yourself, and your soul, it doesn't shout, it whispers, it speaks in stillness, in quiet conviction, and that means you gotta want to hear it. You gotta choose to hear it. See, some of you haven't heard your own voice in years, not the version you project to keep people happy, not the smile you wear to survive rooms that don't deserve you. I'm talking about you, the voice inside that says, "This ain't me." That quiet truth that pulls at you when you're about to compromise, that little whisper that says you were made for more. But the crowd is loud, real loud, and most people are too busy performing for approval to ever pause long enough to listen. You know why silence scares people, because it's in the silence that the lies stop working. The masks fall off in the quiet. When the world's not talking at you, you finally hear what you've been avoiding, your own truth. And for some folks, that's a hard truth. It might tell you you've been chasing the wrong dream, loving the wrong person, living a version of life that was never yours. That's why the crowd keeps yelling. Because if they keep you distracted, they keep you from growing. But you weren't born to be an echo. You weren't born to be another copy of the crowd. You were born to know yourself, to hear yourself, to trust yourself, and that means you're gonna have to get real comfortable with silence, real comfortable with walking away from the noise, because clarity doesn't come through applause, it comes through stillness. That's the thing about truth. It don't fight for your attention like lies do. It don't put on a show. It waits. It waits for you to turn down the volume, to stop running, to sit still long enough for your soul to speak. And when it does, it doesn't always feel comfortable, but it will feel right. That kind of right you can't explain. That kind of peace that makes you stand taller, even when you're standing alone. People think solitude is weakness. Nah, solitude is strength, because it's in the solitude that you grow roots. You stop getting tossed around by every opinion. You stop needing everyone's approval just to breathe. You realize your worth ain't up for debate. It ain't based on likes or followers or applause. It's based on the truth that was in you from the beginning, the truth you were too distracted to hear. Let me tell you something. If you really want to change your life, if you really want to rise, you gotta go where the noise can't follow. You gotta step back from the chaos and choose the quiet. You gotta make peace your priority, because your soul don't speak in the language of the crowd. It speaks in the language of truth, and you can't fake truth. You can only face it. So if it's been a while since you heard yourself, if you've been drowning in expectations, in opinions, in noise, it's time to pull back, time to get quiet, time to remember the voice that was in you before the world told you who to be. Because once you hear that voice again, everything changes, and when it does, you won't go back to the noise, because you'll finally know what it means to be home. You ever wake up one day and not recognize yourself? You look in the mirror and realize you've been showing the world a version of you that's not even real. That ain't you. It's a role, a character you created to fit in, to be accepted, to keep the peace. And the sad thing is, you wore that mask for so long, you started to believe it was your face. That's what happens when you spend your life performing. Every room you walk into, you read the crowd, you study the energy. You figure out what they want from you, and you give it to them. You laugh when it ain't funny. You nod when you disagree. You shrink so they feel bigger. You smile so they don't ask questions. And piece by piece, you lose yourself. Not all at once, slowly, quietly, and by the time you realize what's happening, you're a stranger in your own story. Performing is exhausting. It drains you. It steals your breath. Because every time you choose to be what they want, you bury who you really are. You bury your voice, your truth, your soul, and you tell yourself it's just for now, just to keep the peace, just to get by, but days turn into years. And one day, you look around and realize you've spent your whole life auditioning for people who were never qualified to cast you in the first place. Let me ask you something. What's the price of being accepted if you had to abandon yourself to get there? We weren't born to be liked. We were born to live in purpose, to walk in truth, to stand for something real. But real don't always get applause. Real don't always fit in the room. And that's why most people choose performance over authenticity. Because performance gets approval, but authenticity, it gets misunderstood, it gets judged, it gets left out, but it also gets peace, it gets strength, it gets freedom. See, pretending is survival. That's what most people do. They survive. They say what's safe, do what's expected, but purpose is bold. Purpose don't blend in. Purpose speaks even when it shakes. It stands even when it's alone. And if you keep performing, if you keep molding yourself into whatever they want, you'll miss the very reason you were put here in the first place. You can't lead if you're always looking over your shoulder, wondering what they'll think. You can't grow if you're constantly worried about fitting in. And you sure can't love yourself if you keep hiding who you are just to make other people comfortable. That's not love, that's fear in disguise. Some of y'all are living in rooms that require you to leave your soul at the door. You walk in smiling, laughing, going through the motions. But inside you're hollow, because you're not being seen. You're being accepted for a mask, not for your truth. And let me tell you, there is no healing in that. There is no joy in that. You might be liked, but you will never be free. Freedom comes when you stop performing, when you decide that your peace matters more than their approval. When you realize that the people who love you for who you really are, those are your people. The rest, let them go. You don't need a crowd. You need clarity. You need truth. You need alignment. You were never meant to fit into every room. You were meant to walk into the right one and stand tall. No mask, no performance, just you, all real and whole, and the right people will see you and say, there you are. That's who we've been waiting for. Not the version you polished for acceptance, but the version that was born to lead, born to speak, born to rise. It takes courage to be real, to stop adjusting yourself like you're a radio station trying to find the right frequency. You are the signal. Strong, clear, whole, and the minute you stop performing, you start living. And when you start living, you start healing, because nothing heals faster than truth. You know what's funny? The world will teach you that if something ain't loud, it ain't valuable. If it's not being broadcasted, posted, shared, liked, reposted, it must not matter. But peace, real peace, it don't need all that. Peace don't scream for attention. Peace don't need spotlights. It's not showy. It's not trying to impress. Peace just is quiet, steady, unbothered, and let me tell you, peace will take you farther than any applause ever could. See, approval fades, it's quick, fleeting. One day they love you, the next day they forget your name. You post something, they praise it. You say something true, they criticize it. That's the cycle. It's unstable, it's fickle, and if you build your identity on that, you're gonna live in constant anxiety, constantly trying to maintain something that was never real to begin with. But peace don't ask for maintenance. Peace don't need makeup. It don't need filters. It don't need validation. Peace is what lets you sleep deep at night. because you know you didn't compromise who you are. You didn't betray your truth. You didn't shrink yourself to make somebody else feel tall. Peace is what wakes you up in the morning, grounded, solid, steady, because your worth ain't hanging on anyone's opinion. Now I know, in this world that don't sound sexy, peace ain't flashy, peace don't go viral, you won't see it trending on the front page, because peace doesn't perform, peace don't beg to be seen, it ain't trying to win popularity contests. It's just real, and real doesn't always get celebrated, but real lasts. Let me tell you something about approval. It'll wear you out. It'll make you tired in your spirit, because every time you chase it, you lose a little more of yourself. You adjust, you bend, you perform, and then you realize you're exhausted, not from working hard, but from pretending. You're drained because the approval you thought would fill you only made the hole bigger. But peace wears well. Peace fits. Peace doesn't drain you. It restores you. You don't have to work for it every day like it might disappear. You live in it, you walk in it, you carry it. It shows up in your energy, in your eyes, in your choices. It becomes part of you. You know you've got peace when you stop reacting to everything, when you don't feel the need to explain yourself to everybody who misunderstands you, when you can walk away from the noise and know you didn't lose anything worth keeping. That's peace, and that kind of peace, it's priceless. You can't fake peace. You can fake confidence, you can fake success, you can even fake happiness for a while, but peace, that only comes from alignment, from truth, from choosing what's right for your soul over what's popular in the moment. You don't chase peace like it's outside you. You uncover it by letting go of everything that never belonged to you in the first place. A lot of people don't know peace because they're too addicted to being seen. They want to be known, applauded, praised, but being seen by the world doesn't mean you're known by yourself. And peace starts when you finally stop needing the world's eyes on you. When you realize you don't need a stage to feel valuable. You don't need a following to feel whole. You just need you, your truth, your alignment. That's the foundation that never shakes. And here's the thing, when you walk in peace, people notice. Not because you're flashy, not because you're loud, but because there's something different about you. Something solid, something real. You ain't trying too hard. You're not desperate for validation. You're calm, confident, rooted. That's power, that's presence, and it don't have to perform. It speaks for itself without saying a word. So stop chasing what fades. Stop giving your energy to what's temporary. The likes, the claps, the applause, it's all noise. Let it go. Choose peace. Even when it's quiet, even when nobody sees it, because peace might not go viral, but it will go with you through the storms, through the silence, through the seasons when nobody else understands, but you still keep standing. And that kind of peace, it's not just quiet, it's unshakable. Some people only love you as long as you make yourself small enough to fit inside their comfort zone. The moment you stop shrinking, the moment you start standing up straighter, speaking clearer, walking with more purpose, they get uncomfortable, they back off, they disappear, and that's okay, that's necessary. Because not everyone who walks with you is meant to stay with you. Some doors are supposed to close, some people are supposed to leave, and when they do, don't chase, let them. You see, people, pleasing is a quiet kind of prison. It looks like peace, but it's built on fear. You smile when you want to cry. You agree when your spirit says no. You shrink when your heart wants to expand. All to keep the peace, to keep them happy, to keep things smooth. But smooth don't mean real, and what you lose in the process is you, your voice, your strength, your direction. We don't talk enough about how hard it is to stop being who the world wants you to be, because when you do, you'll disappoint people, you'll confuse them, they'll say you've changed, but what really happened is you finally decided to stop betraying yourself just to be accepted, and when you stop performing for approval, some people will call it selfish. Let them mislabel your healing, let them misunderstand your growth. That's not your burden to carry. The people who need you to be small for them to feel comfortable, those are not your people. And when you stop people pleasing, you find that out real fast. The room gets quieter, the phone rings less, the invitations dry up. But don't confuse the silence with failure. That silence, that's space. That's clarity. That's your soul finally having room to breathe. Because when you've spent your life managing everyone else's emotions, everyone else's expectations, their disappointment feels like rejection. But it's not, it's release. It's the universe clearing the path so you can finally walk forward without dragging the weight of pretending behind you. See, peace don't always come with applause. Sometimes peace comes with empty chairs, with quiet exits, with people walking away when they realize they can no longer control you. And that's when you know you're getting stronger, when their absence doesn't shake you, when you stop chasing people who only loved the version of you that made them feel powerful. Some doors close when you stop people pleasing. Let them. Stop trying to reopen what peace is trying to shut. You don't need approval to be aligned. You don't need applause to walk in purpose. What you need is truth, integrity, a spine, and the courage to say, if being real costs me your comfort, that's a price I'm willing to pay. Because here's what happens when you let go of pleasing. You gain your time back. Your energy, your clarity. You laugh from your belly again. You speak with conviction again. You walk into rooms without scanning them to see who you need to become. You stop asking for permission to be yourself. And the right people, they won't need you to shrink. They won't ask you to perform. They'll see you, flaws, edges, fullness, and still choose to stay. That's real connection. That's real love. But you'll never find it if you're too busy curating yourself into something more palatable for people who were never supposed to stay. Don't grieve the loss of fake friendships. Don't mourn relationships that only existed because you were bending to be accepted. That's not loss, that's liberation. That's your soul cleaning house, making room for better, for deeper, for real. So let the doors close. Let the silence settle in. Let the masks fall off. You're not here to entertain, to blend, to please. You're here to live in truth, to walk in peace. And sometimes peace means walking away from anything or anyone. That requires you to abandon yourself. And if walking away leaves you standing alone, so be it. You'll stand stronger in solitude than you ever did in the company of people who only loved your silence. You know, we've been taught that power looks like dominance, that it's loud, commanding, that it shows up in the room before you do and takes over everything in its path. But real power don't need to shout. It don't need a spotlight. It don't come with noise or chaos or drama. Real power comes when you choose peace. See, peace isn't weakness. Peace is the strongest thing you can walk in. Because peace is centered, peace is focused, peace is unshakable, and when you got that kind of peace, the world stops controlling you. The opinions don't sway you. The noise don't distract you. The chaos don't move you. There's something dangerous about a person who's at peace with themselves. Dangerous in the best way, because you can't manipulate someone who isn't afraid of being misunderstood. You can't shame somebody who's already accepted themselves. You can't control someone who's not hungry for your approval. You stop being a puppet the moment you choose peace, but that kind of peace, it don't come cheap. It comes from letting go of the image, letting go of the performance, letting go of the idea that you got to be everything for everybody. And when you finally release that pressure, what you get in return is presence, clarity, alignment, and that's where power lies. You ever notice how the strongest people in the room aren't the loudest? They're not the ones trying to impress or prove anything. They're still collected, rooted, because their power isn't on display, it's internal. It's built from years of learning when to speak and when to be silent, when to act and when to wait, when to push and when to let go. That's what peace gives you. It gives you mastery over yourself. You don't need to control the world when you've learned how to control your spirit. When you choose peace, You stop reacting to everything. You stop letting every comment, every opinion, every rumor take your energy. You realize not everything deserves your fire. Some things only deserve your silence. Some battles are just noise designed to pull you out of your character. And when you've got peace, you don't take that bait. You start to move differently. You don't chase arguments. You don't chase people. You don't chase validation. You become selective with your time, your words, your energy, not because you're arrogant, but because you're finally in alignment. And alignment will have you walking away from anything that threatens your peace without explanation. The moment you choose peace, you reclaim your power. It's not about being passive. It's about being precise. It's about knowing who you are so deeply that nothing outside of you gets to define your worth. Not applause, not criticism, not even failure. Because when you've made peace with yourself, nothing can take that away. And people will notice. They'll feel it. They'll feel that something's different. That you're not moved by the same things. That your smile isn't for show, it's real. That your stillness isn't emptiness, it's strength. That your distance isn't coldness, it's clarity. You're not avoiding life. You're just refusing to be pulled into everything that doesn't serve your growth. That's power. You're no longer fighting to be seen. You're no longer begging to be understood. You're no longer hustling for worthiness. Because when you've found peace in your own soul, you don't need external proof. You become your own anchor, your own compass, your own source of calm in the middle of storms that used to shake you. It's not that the world gets quieter. It's that you stop letting it control the volume. So if you want power, I mean real power, the kind that don't fade, don't fold, don't fall apart under pressure, choose peace, not the peace that comes from avoiding conflict. I'm talking about the peace that comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going. That kind of peace will make you unbothered by things that used to break you, and once you find it, protect it, guard it, because your peace, that's your power. If this stirred something deep in you, that's not an accident, that's your soul knocking. Don't ignore it. Don't go back to the noise. If you're ready to choose peace, to stop performing and start walking in your quiet power, subscribe now. Hit that like button if you're done with people pleasing and ready to live real, and drop a comment. I'm done performing. I choose peace. This journey isn't for everyone, but if you're still here, it's definitely for you. Keep showing up for your soul. We'll walk this road together.